Blood on the sand, smoke rising from burning homes. The warriors who defended their villages lie broken, lifeless.
But the true terror has only just begun.
Because the women left behind will suffer in ways that defy imagination. For them, survival meant shame, torment, and a future darker than death itself. This is the story the sagas rarely tell. The story of what Vikings did to the wives of defeated warriors. And it begins here. The clash of steel fades.
Only silence remains.
Punctuated by the cries of widows. On the battlefield, the dead are left to rot, their blood feeding the earth. But for the women, the true horror begins in this silence. Soldiers rip them from the arms of their children, dragging them into a new reality. Who will speak for them now? Behind every fallen shield was a wife left helpless, and the Vikings knew exactly what awaited them. Torches flicker against the night sky, horses snort, restless. Women are bound and pulled into the darkness. Their screams do not echo long. They are muffled, silenced, consumed. What awaited them was no accident. It was a ritual of terror, and it leads us to the next chapter. Honor was everything in the Viking Age. To strip it away was a punishment worse than wounds. The captured wives knew this. They were paraded, mocked, and forced to endure humiliation as men jeered. Their dignity was torn apart, piece by piece.
Can you imagine their terror?
To survive, they had to endure degradation that scarred deeper than blades. Each act of cruelty was deliberate, meant to break them, to crush not only their spirit, but the memory of their men. Fires burned in the background, casting monstrous shadows across their faces. In the sagas, this part is hidden, whispered about, rarely told. Yet here it was, the beginning of captivity. But humiliation was only the first step. The march into slavery was next. It wasn't enough to conquer with swords. The Vikings turned cruelty into ritual. The wives of warriors were forced into grotesque displays, spectacles that reminded all who watched. Resistance was futile. The jeers of the victors rang out as women were paraded through villages, stripped not only of their freedom, but of their very humanity.
Imagine standing there, powerless, shamed before strangers, knowing you had no escape. Was death the kind of choice?
These rituals weren't just cruelty. They were psychological warfare, ensuring that fear spread faster than fire. Torches lit the night as women trembled in silence. The crowd roared.
Yet this was not the end.
Humiliation was only a doorway. Beyond it lay a march into the unknown. A march into slavery. Bound in chains, the wives were forced to march. Villages behind them smoldered. Ahead lay years, perhaps lifetimes, of bondage. The roads were endless, and every step carried the weight of despair. Children cried, mothers stumbled, soldiers laughed. Could hope survive such a march? Some tried to remember home, clinging to memories of voices now silenced. Others shut down entirely, their eyes hollow, empty. The march was not just physical, it was psychological, a severing of ties to the past. Each mile stretched further from freedom. Each horizon looked the same, endless and bleak. And yet, worse awaited them at the journey's end. Because slavery was not merely chains and labor, it was something far darker. And for many, slavery was a living death, forced labor, endless servitude. But for the wives of warriors, the torment cut deeper. They were not only captives, they were trophies. Used to display power, traded like spoils, they lived under constant violation. Was survival even survival at this point? Every moment was another wound, invisible yet permanent. Their voices faded, their names forgotten, their identities erased. They existed only as shadows in another man's household. The sagas celebrated Viking glory, but these women were erased from the story. Their fate was not written in ink. It was buried in silence. Yet even silence carries echoes, echoes that demand to be heard.
And those echoes haunt us still.
Centuries have passed, yet the suffering of these women lingers in the shadows of history. Their stories were whispered but rarely recorded, erased by those who glorified conquest. But listen closely, you can almost hear them, the forgotten voices of women who endured what we can barely imagine.
How many chose survival? How many longed for death?
The truth lies hidden between the lines of sagas and chronicles, waiting for us to uncover it. Their echoes remind us that victory often hides unbearable cruelty, and in remembering them, we force history to confront its darkest truths. But here's the question. What would you choose, death or survival? History hides its darkest stories in silence. These women were erased, their voices buried beneath Viking glory. But by uncovering their fate, we honor them. If you want more forgotten stories revealed, subscribe to Epic Histories Vault. Like, comment, and share your thoughts. Their echoes deserve to be heard,